I want you to close your eyes for a moment. Just try to let the sounds around you fade away. Picture yourself on a street in Incheon, South Korea. It's evening, and the air is just thick with that amazing smell of a Korean BBQ. You know, that charcoal smoke, the sizzling pork belly. You can hear chopsticks clinking, soju glasses, laughter. It's the sound of life.
It really is. A BBQ restaurant in Korea, it's more than a place to eat. It's a community hub, a sanctuary almost.
Exactly. But we're not here for that tonight, because in September of 2024, at one very, very popular restaurant in Incheon, that smell, it wasn't pork, the meat on that grill. It was a living human being.
And we need to be very clear, this isn't some urban legend. This didn't happen hundreds of years ago. This happened in a modern city in a building with Wi-Fi less than a year ago.
Today, we're telling a story of how belief can be twisted into just pure madness. This is the Incheon Human Grill case. It's about how a young woman was, literally consumed by greed, a so-called shaman, and the terrifying brainwashing of her own family.
It's a case that really makes you question the line between, faith and psychosis, and how a family can become a torture cult right under everyone's noses.
Let's start with the victim. Her name was Su-yeon. She was 35. And on paper, she was the perfect daughter. She had a degree in English literature. She was brilliant, studied abroad.
She could have done anything, gone anywhere.
Absolutely. But she didn't. She came home. She came back to Incheon to help run her parents' BBQ restaurant.
That's a powerful cultural expectation, the concept of hyo, or filial piety. It's this deep moral duty to put your parents' success before your own. For her, it wasn't just helping out. It was an obligation.
And she was great at it. The business was thriving. Customers loved her. She was the face of the place.
Yeah.
But then one day the restaurant just shut down. No sign, no explanation.
Yeah.
And when it reopened, Su-yeon's parents were gone.
Just vanished.
And in their place was a new owner, a 70-year-old woman, Aunt Shim. She looked like, kindly grandmother, but she was Su-yeon's actual aunt, her mother's sister. And she wasn't just an aunt, she was a mudang, a Korean shaman.
Which is, for anyone who doesn't know, a very respected role in Korean folk religion. Mm-hmm. They're seen as mediators between the human and spirit worlds. Their authority is spiritual. It's based on belief.
And Aunt Shim used that authority like a weapon. We looked into her past. Before this, she'd run a restaurant on Jeju Island, and, she ran it straight into the ground. She was in massive debt, something like 1.6 billion won.
That's over $1 million. She was desperate.
She didn't see her sister's restaurant as a family success. She saw it as a piggy bank. And the way she took it over is what's so terrifying. She didn't use a weapon, she used a story. She told Su-yeon's mother that the family was cursed. She claimed that in a past life, Su-yeon and her own father had been husband and wife.
Wow. That's a masterstroke of psychological manipulation. She's taking the most sacred relationship, father and daughter, and making it taboo. She's poisoning it from within.
Exactly. She said Su-yeon still had these, quote, incestuous spiritual feelings, and that if they didn't cure her, the family would be destroyed, the business would fail, everything would just burn.
It's a classic cult tactic. You invent a spiritual disease, and then you position yourself as the only person with the cure. It creates this instant, desperate dependency.
And the cure was for the parents to leave immediately. Shim sent them to a remote island, Ulongdo. She told them, I will stay. I will purify the shop. I will fix your daughter. Don't come back until I tell you.
And they did it. They went. They left their daughter alone with this woman.
They believed they were saving her by abandoning her. That's the level of control Shim had already established. But once they were gone, the mask came off.
The restaurant became a prison. Shim moved her own kids in, her disciples. And the shop turned into a labor camp. Su-yeon and her brother were working 16-hour days, dawn to midnight. And the money.
Every last bit of it went straight into Shin's pocket to pay off her debts. Su-yeon wasn't getting paid. She was a slave in her own family's business.
And she's trapped, right? She's trapped by her own loyalty. She's probably thinking this is all temporary, that it's for some greater spiritual good.
For a while, yeah. But Su-yeon was smart. She knew the numbers. She figured out the money was disappearing, that her aunt wasn't purifying anything. She was just stealing. So Su-yeon finally confronted her. She said, I'm done. I'm going to find my parents.
And that's the trigger. For a predator like Shim, the victim trying to escape is the ultimate threat. The money stops and the whole scam gets exposed. She couldn't let that happen.
So Shim escalated. She gathered her followers and told them Su-yeon wanted to leave because evil spirits had fully possessed her. These sexual spirits were taking over.
Dehumanization. It's the step right before extreme violence. You convince your followers that the victim isn't a person anymore. They're a vessel for evil. It gives you moral permission to do the unthinkable.
Which brings us to September 18th, 2024. Chuseok, Korean Thanksgiving, a day for family. But inside that restaurant, they were preparing for a different kind of ceremony. Shim had her son build something on the second floor.
And the police reports on this are just chilling. The level of premeditation is staggering.
He built a steel grid. Imagine a BBQ grill, but human-sized. And they suspended it about 3 feet over a big fire pit. It was a cooking device for a person.
The intent is undeniable.
They just needed to get Su-yeon onto it. So they lied. Shim told her, "Get in the car. We're finally taking you to your parents."
You can just imagine the relief Su-yeon must have felt. She thought it was over. But they didn't drive to the island. They drove right back to the restaurant.
The cruelty in that, giving her that hope just to snatch it away, is designed to break her will to resist.
They took her upstairs. And before she could even process what she was seeing, they grabbed her. They overpowered her and tied her hands and feet to that steel grid, spread-eagled, hanging over the pit.
And then it began. We know what happened, because they left the CCTV cameras on. They were so delusional, they thought they were doing something holy. The footage shows Shim's son lighting charcoal under the grid.
And let's be clear about charcoal. It's not a quick death. It doesn't erupt in flames. It heats up slowly. This wasn't an execution. This was designed to be a slow-motion torture.
The recording lasts for almost 3 hours. 3 hours. You can see Su-yeon struggling as the heat builds. And Shim, she's just standing at the head of the grid, directing things. Not helping. Directing.
It's what psychologists call a diffusion of responsibility, but amplified by this cult-like terror. The 5 people watching this happen, they were more afraid of Shim than they were of their own conscience.
There's a detail in the report. It's sickening. At one point, when the fire starts to die down, they add more charcoal to make it hotter. And the camera shows Shim grabbing handfuls of hot ash and stuffing it into Su-yeon's mouth, pulling her hair, screaming at the spirits.
And her clothing.
They'd cut it off. They wanted the heat on her skin directly.
That confirms it wasn't symbolic. That's pure sadism disguised as a ritual. The pain was the entire point.
Towards the end of the video, Su-yeon goes limp. She stops moving. And what do? They don't panic. They go to the kitchen, grab raw meat, and throw it on the grill next to her body.
They're staging the scene, trying to build a cover story, an accident.
Right. They eventually call an ambulance and say, "She tripped. She fell into the fire while we were working."
Which is just, it's an absurd lie. You don't trip and get burns like that over a 3-hour period. You don't trip and end up tied to a grid. It shows how completely detached from reality they were.
Paramedics found her barely alive. The burns were catastrophic. She held on for 2 days in the hospital, but she died on September 20th.
And that's when it became a murder investigation.
The police obviously didn't buy the story. The CCTV footage told the truth. It was an execution. Shim and her followers were all arrested.
You'd think that would be the moment the spell breaks for everyone.
You would think. But this is where the story turns into a psychological horror movie. At the trial, Shim showed zero remorse. She kept insisting she was just helping her niece.
Yeah.
But then, the parents took the stand. Su-yeon's mother and father.
The people who should be screaming for justice.
They'd been brought back from the island. They saw the evidence. They knew their sister had burned their daughter alive. And in court, they took the killer's side.
Wait, they defended Shim?
They begged the judge for leniency. They testified that it wasn't the charcoal that killed her. They said it was the evil spirits leaving her body that caused the fire to flare up. They still believe the lie.
That's devastating. It's an extreme form of cognitive dissonance. It's a psychological defense mechanism.
What does that mean? How could they possibly do that?
Think about the alternative. If they admit Shim is a murderer, they also have to admit that they are responsible. They have to admit they handed their daughter over to be killed. The guilt would be so overwhelming it would shatter their minds.
So it's easier to believe their daughter was a demon.
Exactly. It's easier to retreat deeper into the delusion than to face the reality of what they allowed to happen. It's a way for their minds to survive an unbearable truth.
It's just a terrifying thought.
Yeah.
Guilt can make you deny reality itself. Luckily, the judge saw through it all. He saw Shim for what she was, a predator.
And the sentences reflected that, I hope.
They did. Aunt Shim got life in prison. Her children and the other accomplices received sentences from 10 to 25 years. The court said that even under her influence, they still chose to light that fire. They still chose to watch.
It's justice on paper, but it feels so hollow. Su-yeon is still gone, and her parents' minds are. They're still lost in that lie.
And you're left with this cold, horrible realization. The monster in this story wasn't a stranger. It was an aunt who smiled at you. It was parents who chose a convenient lie over their own child.
It really shows how vulnerable we all are to charismatic authority. Shim used her religious mask to bypass everyone's critical thinking. The most dangerous weapon isn't a gun. It's the power to control what people believe is true.
The scariest ghosts. They aren't hiding in the shadows. They're living inside of human greed. The ones that can convince a mother that her own daughter is the enemy.
That's the real horror of this case, not the fire, the betrayal.
We've reached the end of this very dark story. It's one that kind of lingers like smoke long after you've heard it. Thank you for listening to this story. If you want to follow more terrifying true crime and horror stories, please press like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs.